If you ever try to do something like this with your Tailwind classes, you may have noticed that this doesn't work. So you actually have to write out the complete class name in order for us to get a background color here. So if I save here, we should now see a background color, and indeed we do. But why doesn't this work? If you evaluate this expression here, it becomes bg-blue-500 because color is set to blue now. But for some reason that doesn't work. And if we change this to a different color, let's say green, if I save now, we actually don't see a green button. The background has completely disappeared. And if we inspect here in the browser, we can actually see that it has that BG Green 500 class in the class list. But remember with CSS, you shouldn't only have it in the class list, you should also select it in your style sheet and then apply the styles. And Tailwind generates that style sheet for us depending on what it sees here in the class name, not depending on what the browser has parsed this as the class list. This is what Tailwind is going to look at to determine what should be in that style sheet, not this class list here in the browser. And we can actually take a look at that generated style sheet. So here you can see the styles that are applied to the button. You can just click on this layout file here. And if you scroll through here, you will not see a selector for BG Green 500. So why didn't we see anything for BG Green 500 in that style sheet? Well, Tailwind actually explains this to us on their website. The way Tailwind scans your source code for classes is intentionally very simple. We don't actually parse or execute any of your code. So it's not actually going to evaluate this expression to see what the class is going to be. It's literally going to see this as BG dash curly brace color curly brace dash 500. And that's not a Tailwind class. So it's not going to add anything in the style sheet for that. And I actually have a good example here on the page as well. So if you have this as your code, it's going to literally look at all these strings here. So each individual string is going to mark that as a potential candidate for a Tailwind class. So even div and class and even the text in there, even this href value. So each individual string in your source code will be a potential Tailwind class. And it will go through each string and check if it's actually a Tailwind class. And if that's true, it will add it to the generated style sheet. So that means if we want to make this work with this BG color 500 with green here, as long as we add the complete class name somewhere in our source code, this should work. So if I make this BG green 500, so here's a variable that we're not even going to use here. I will just leave it like this. And now if I save here, it should actually work because now we actually do have the complete class name here. And I made a typo. This should be with the $sign. So now if I save here, you can see it actually works because now the complete class name is here. And it will add that to the style sheet. And in the browser, it actually does get the evaluated class in the class list. If I change this to purple, now we expect this to become BG-purple-500. If I save here though, we're going to see that that's not how it works. However, if this BG purple 500 class is present somewhere in our source code in its entirety, it will work. So if I change this to BG purple 500, and I can also put it here, and anywhere in our source code, if I save here now, we see that we get a purple button because Tailwind will go over each string here in our source code and it will check, is this a Tailwind class? If yes, add it to that style sheet. So it will see here, oh, this is a Tailwind class. So it will output that in the generated style sheet. And then here we get BG-purple-500 in the class list for the browser, which will actually hook up with that selector in the style sheet generated for us by Tailwind. Now, somebody on Stack Overflow actually had a pretty good idea because what's annoying sometimes with Tailwind is if you have some breakpoint, let's say, you have to specify it for each class. So here, if I want to do something from medium size and upwards, I have to mark all of that with MD colon, right? So I have to mark each individual class here with MD. So that person actually got the idea to use a function here. So MD, just call that function, and then just have rounded, text white, font semi-bold. So now you wouldn't have to write them out all like this. You would just have some utility function here that would manually append MD colon to these classes. But as that person found out, it didn't work because you cannot generate these classes dynamically in Tailwind, right? So here they also mention don't construct class names dynamically. So this is another common example, text, and if it's an error, we want to have it red, otherwise we want it green. This doesn't work. So they say always use complete class name. So you would have to refactor it a little bit. So you can still do it like this. So you have error and then the complete class name. Another common example is with props. So if you get a color for the button, you may want to use it like what we've done in the example here, like this. Well, we've seen that doesn't work. So they actually give a good tip here. You can still have color, but you should have a map. So here, for example, we call color variant with that color, and this actually will give us these complete class names. And one other benefit of doing it this way is that you also can hide all of these classes that have to do with blue. For example, the hover state, the focus state, the active state. You can hide all of that behind one value. So that cleans up the class list here as well. For example, here, if you have even more classes, even for the text, that may be different depending on the value. So as long as the class is present somewhere in your source code in its entirety, it will work. So you could make the argument, why not include every class name in the source code so it will always be included in the style sheet? Well, then your style sheet is going to be huge because Tailwind has more than 30,000 utility classes. So you're going to blow up your style sheet in size too much. If you really want a particular class name to be in that generated style sheet, you can actually use the Safelist option in the Tailwind config. So if you just add a class name here, it will always be included in that generated style sheet. So then you can use it even dynamically. However, they mention it's the last resource and that you should only do that if you cannot actually add it somewhere else in your source code. Now, what if you have text here, let's say lorem ipsum text, and this text contains, for example, the word container? Right, this is just a normal word in the English language, so it could be possible that you actually have it included in some text there. Tailwind will go over that and it will see, oh, container, that's a Tailwind class, and it will add container to that Tailwind generated style sheet. Well, it's not a huge problem if a couple classes are in a generated style sheet. It doesn't matter that much for size, but maybe you have your own selector for container and you have your own styles for the container class. You don't want Tailwind styling when there is the container class. So you want to prevent this from being included in that generated style sheet. Well, you can use the block list here in Tailwind. So you can add container here and you'll be rest assured that it will never be included in that generated style sheet by Tailwind. We talk a lot about Tailwind in my React Next.js course. I highly recommend check it out. Also, make sure you've mastered the underlying fundamentals, both JavaScript as well as CSS. I have courses on them both. Check out the links in the description. Thanks for watching and I hope to see you soon. Bye.